The collaboration conversation is brought to you by Project Brickworks, the new ministry dedicated to equipping Christians to use their talents and gifts to bring others into a relationship with King Jesus. Project Brickworks is a crowd-funded nonprofit ministry made possible by amazing, generous folks like you, and we are so very grateful. We created the collaboration conversation as a way for Christians to share about their upcoming projects and how they are using the gifts and talents that God has given them. Today's very special guest,
very special.
I really can't say very special enough, is someone that I've been looking forward to talking to for at least 8 years. It's the first time we're meeting, and I'm so excited. Author Trish Perry. Trish, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm excited as well.
How are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm doing great. Doing great.
Good.
My palms are sweating all of a sudden.
I'm freezing. When I get nervous, I just get super cold. Right now I'm freezing, but it's fine.
Well, Trish, it's very nice to meet you. We have been corresponding back and forth, actually, over the last few years. But, to see your face and to, just
meet you, even though it's virtual.
Yes,
it's
very
very exciting.
It's awesome. So for our listeners, Trish is an incredible author. She has written over 22 romance novels and devotionals. Her first novel, The Guy I'm Not Dating, actually holds a very special place in our hearts, and that's part of the reason that we were so excited about meeting her today. But we'll talk about that more later, because we're just really excited about this conversation. So,
Trish, so since this is the first time that we've met you, and maybe the first time some of our listeners are getting to know you, will you just tell us a little bit about you and your career and your family?
Sure. Well, I am pretty much an East Coast gal. I've lived there most of my life. Raised my family there. Went to school there. Transplanted over here to California a few years ago. But went to school out there. Didn't really know what God wanted me to do, and so I floundered around a bit. I actually I was a stockbroker in the 80s. That was not what he wanted me to do.
She said, found that out, tried it.
I didn't like it, and it didn't like me. And so I went back to school as an adult. And because I realized I love psychology, I was reading psychology books and magazines for fun. So I went back to school, got my degree there. But while I was getting my degree, because of some of the writing that was involved with some of my classes, English and others, I got some feedback from some of my professors that, you're pretty good at this. You might want to pursue this. And I was married in the tail end of my degree work. And I did start, dabbling in something outside of what was required for classwork, and told my husband, I'm starting to get a little concerned because I felt that God was leading me the entire time I was working on my degree toward being a counselor. And then I started to wonder what does he want me to do? So my husband at the time, a good guy, said, why don't you take a couple years off after you get your degree, and rather than going forward with your grad degrees, just see if you like the writing. So I did that, and I just never went back. I loved it. And that I definitely could tell that was what he wanted me to do. And it's a blessing for me. I mean, that was, 25 years ago or so that I started doing that. I started writing while I was in college. Started taking a couple of creative writing courses before I finished. So that was a nice head start.
Yeah.
So I've loved it. I still love it. I keep on thinking, maybe this will be the last year. I'm thinking that again. I don't know, but I always end up doing it again. But I love it. I definitely feel this is what God wants me doing.
Well, let me ask you this. I didn't know that you had a psychology degree. How do you find that has helped you in your writing? I mean, I can't imagine that understanding people and how they work has not helped you create characters.
Yeah, it definitely was not a detour. It was part of the path.
Yeah.
I use it all the time. And half the time I don't even realize I'm using it. And then
right.
I go back and I read stuff and I think, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Of course, that's why she would act like that. And then, definitely where that insecurity was coming from. And it's like background work.
Totally. And that is so important in writing. And I love that you said that it's definitely part of your path and not a detour. Because I was just going to say, God works that way. We have had so many what we thought were detours, but they
Right.
really weren't. They were totally they were one of the stepping stones in the path that we just had no idea that's what they were. It felt like a detour, but it wasn't.
Right.
So I just thought that was really cool. And so you mentioned that you recently-ish moved to LA, and I know that is right around the time that I left LA, which makes me so sad. We just missed each other. So talk to me about, your new life in LA. How's your transition been to be out there? What brought you out there, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, I love it out here. I mean, I have never been a big fan of winter. I was always like this every year when, October, the beautiful brisk weather would start to come on. And I'd think, but then we're gonna have to go through all that ice, and it's never been my thing. So that part of it that's the best. But I came out here because after my son finished college, he got a film degree. He came out here several years ago so he could pursue work in the industry. So he came out. My daughter and her family are still out on the East Coast. So then I'm thinking, what's going to happen for me? And then a few years later, my daughter and her husband both got these fabulous jobs with I won't say the company just in case I shouldn't, but
Sure.
That took them out to LA.
Wow.
And they ended up moving 30 minutes away from where my son moved.
Oh,
He's in Burbank. They're here
yay.
in Calabasas.
Yeah.
And, if that isn't a God thing, I don't know what is. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
and I thought, okay, well, I know where I'm going to retire. And so I had planned on eventually quitting. I was working for a company doing sales to pay the bills. And I was going to retire right about now and then move out here. And my daughter said, why don't you just quit and this was, 3 years ago. Why don't you just quit, sell your house, come on out here, move in with us. We've got a spare room. Come on out here. You'll help us with the kids.
Yeah.
You find whatever you want to do out here at your leisure. If you want to buy a condo, do it at your leisure. So I did that. I prayed about it. And then it's just within a month, I just said, okay, I'm doing it. And it was very exciting after living there all my life. Very exciting, very disorienting, but that's how I ended up out here. And my son-in-law has convinced me to hang out here with them longer than I had planned. And it's really a symbiotic sort of relationship because they sometimes they need someone to be here for my granddaughter who's still a little one. And it's making life a lot easier for me. And I'd get used to living with people again.
Yeah.
But there are some real pluses to it. I don't know if I can live on my own again.
I don't want to do that now.
How old is your granddaughter?
She is 9. She just turned 9.
Oh, so sweet.
Yay.
How cool.
And then I have a grandson who is going to be 18 pretty soon. So
Wow.
Nice.
So moving out there, you had support and you had loved ones. And so that transition, I'm sure, was just an actual joy, a pleasure. How cool. How special. Well, we have a very special place in our heart for the LA, Southern California area. We are out there very often. So next time post-pandemic, we're out there. We need to meet in person because we would love that. And we love LA.
Well, so you already know this because you've been checking us out and we've been trying to connect about this podcast. But this is about our talents and our gifts. And what we've been learning about this is it felt maybe a little unhumble, if that's a word, to try and talk about that. But we really have decided that, naming it, because these are the specific talents and gifts that God has given us, is really just a way of being thankful to Him. For me, I have, I would say, a gift of administration, perhaps. And so to say, that doesn't make me a better administrator than anybody else. It's just that's the gift He gave me. He did not give me the gift of acting. So I'm okay with that, right? I can name that too. But we know that you're a very gifted writer. And so we'd love for you to talk about that a little bit too. But is there, do you have other gifts and talents that God's given you that you've kind of identified and you're like, this is an area where I'm really able to be a blessing to others? Well,
I'm glad you gave me a little warning on that because I I have been in groups where we've talked about spiritual gifts, and I mean, it's like, oh, I know I don't want to be a missionary. And I can name the ones that I'm not. But I had a conversation with a friend in a group about that. And a little bit later in the group meeting, it was a book club meeting, she said, I know what it is. You're an encourager. So apparently that's something that comes naturally to me sometimes. But the other thing is, as far as a little more tangible, is I discovered that I could sing. Okay. I mean, as I mentioned, that I'm not an American Idol. I
did not know that you could sing. That's so
but,
cool.
When I was younger, before I was born again, when I was a stockbroker, one of my co-trainees was a woman who played bass, and we got talking, and she said, why don't you come out and to our next practice and see if you want to sing with us. And I didn't realize they were looking for a female lead singer. So I just kind of fell into that, and it was so much fun. But that was like rock and rhythm and blues. And I mean, the hair and, skin tight red pants with black widow spiders all over. It was fun. It was so much fun. But then after I found the Lord and started going to church, just kind of fell into singing worship there. And that, I just loved that. Totally loved that. Did that until my son at that point was, he was still a little one. And this one evening I was going to go to practice. And I said, okay, I'm leaving, babe. And he says, where are you going? And I said, I have worship practice. And he goes, you're always leaving. It just broke my heart. I didn't notice because I was also like co-leading a women's Bible study. And it's like I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was busying myself with too many things. And I quit that night. I called the worship leader, and I said, I cried. I said, my son just broke my heart. I can't do it anymore. So now I just do it as a congregant. I don't do the worship team because it's, you don't just go there and sing. You got to go to practices, and
it's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Well, how cool. I love that you have had different gifts, and that you have different gifts, and you've been able to use them in different ways. I mean, serving your church is huge. We always, encourage people that if you have a talent or a gift that helps the church, to definitely volunteer. So I love that you did that. And talk to us about, obviously, well, the gift of encouragement, I think is really cool, because when someone else names it, like, you can't say, no, that's not mine. Like, somebody else named it for you.
Yes.
Do you find that maybe that's part of your writing as well? That's a cool point. Yeah. I mean, because I don't get a lot of, ever since people don't write letters that much anymore. But when I first started, I would get notes from readers. Mm-hmm. And boy, that is the best thing ever. I mean, I would do it for nothing at all. If it's so cool when you get a note from someone. Like this one woman wrote to me, and she pinpointed this one scene in one of my books. It was a revelation of this girl finding about something about her dad, and it was apparently very much like something that she went through with her dad. And she said, wow, that was me. That was my moment that you were writing about. And it just, and hearing that kind of thing, I mean, a lot of authors will tell you that it means so much when someone tells you, oh, I really needed to hear that, or, that really encouraged me to hang in there. And I know it's not too late, or whatever it is. And it's wonderful because you don't know when you're writing these things. I mean, mm-hmm. you know that if someone's going to read it, and if they're in that kind of situation, the way you're writing it, it could help them. But you don't know if there's anyone out there that's going to read your book and come across that. But it happens sometimes, and it is so wonderful. I same with devotionals, writing the devotionals is the same kind of thing. Totally. And I think as a creative, sometimes I get very frustrated with the process, as far as like writing. and especially with writing. And so my question is, do you find that when you're receiving these letters, it's kind of this like full circle moment where all of the struggle and all of the frustration and all of any writer's block that happened, you can kind of just let it go because it's been received and it's making a difference. And you know, like you said, when you're writing that scene, you don't know if someone is going to resonate with it, but you hope. And now I don't know. And then it did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you find that that's the case?
Absolutely. It's such a blessing. I still remember when I was a new Christian and back to singing, hearing a woman whose voice was phenomenal singing in church. And afterwards, I said that to her and she said, oh, praise God. And I thought, I was new, so I hadn't heard people, when they're complimented saying praise God, but it was that full circle thing. It's like, she got something out of it, and she was thanking God. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for having someone come and tell me that I brought them closer to you with the thing you've given me. It's awesome. Yeah, it is full circle.
And it's totally a God thing because he sends us those affirmations. I know that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
He sends the affirmations that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, that he is receiving glory by you using your gifts and your talents. And so letters, or even honestly, Trish, even you saying yes to this podcast, we have been, and we're going to talk about the guy I'm not dating. In fact, that might be the next thing we're talking about, but maybe I'll just transition and talk about it. But the guy I'm not dating has held such a special place in my heart and in our hearts and in our minds over the last 8 years that we've been trying to make it into a film. And there are mostly seasons where it's not moving. And it feels like it's not in our hands at all. And we have no control over that. And just you saying yes to this and us getting to get to know you before we make the movie that you created the story. To me, that is a huge affirmation that we are going to make this movie. I don't know when, and I hope it's sooner rather than later. I do hope it's post-pandemic, but I just even things like this are huge affirmations of God, from God, and so that's just really cool.
Well, and if I had known that it was possible to get a letter to you, I really would have encouraged you to write her.
It's so funny you said that because I was like, I feel like I had said something like,
yes.
Well, so let's go ahead. Let's talk about it because I'm excited to talk about it. But I love so your very first book, which ashamedly I admit that I didn't know it was your first book until we set up this interview, was The Guy I'm Not Dating. So the first thing I want to do is actually have you just tell us a little bit about your first book. You don't necessarily have to go into detail about what it's about, but just how it came to be. And then I'd love to share with you how it came into my life, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That's awesome. Actually, it wasn't my first book. It was my third, but it was first released.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you're right. It was the first release. When I first started writing, I had been so impressed with Frank Peretti's spiritual warfare books.
Yes.
As a Christian, I was a new Christian. I was really impacted by those. So the first book that I wrote, and it's sort of what I cut my teeth on, was a spiritual warfare book. Which, I mean, I think back when Frank Peretti was writing that kind of stuff, there was a market for that, but I don't know if there's much of a market for that anymore. And I don't know if I'll ever even independently publish that. But then that was so heavy that I just wanted to write something fun. And so then I wrote the second book, Too Good to Be True.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like maybe.
Yeah, I've got that right there.
Yeah. And that was the one that I got my first traditional house contract with. And they said, by the time that got contracted, I had already started writing the next one, which was The Guy I'm Not Dating. And they said, well, what else do you have? Do you have something to go along with this? And I said, I'm actually working on the sequel. And so they said, well, send us what you have. I had, the first 5 chapters done. And they liked it. And they said, okay, what we want to do, though, we want to switch the sequence. So could you rewrite them, including the one that was already done, rewrite them so that the sequence fits to have The Guy I'm Not Dating come out first. Plus, I had done one in first person and one in third, so I had to completely rewrite.
Totally rewrite it.
Wow.
So, so that one was the first release, but it was the third book that I
am shook by this information.
Yes, you never know. So the way that one came about, the idea for that, my daughter, I wasn't able to get her to Christ. But when she went to college, she went to the University of Maryland. Was it Campus Life, Campus Crusade? I can't remember what it's called, but one of those campus
ministries,
groups, they got her. And so she became a Christian when she was in college. And so she was going to church out in Maryland, and she invited me to go to a woman's breakfast sort of thing, huge. And so I went there, and one of the young women she introduced me to was, after I met her and the girl left, my daughter told me she and her husband or fiance, they tried that thing where you just court, you decide with someone that you've been friends with, essentially, that you're going to court, that you are going to date, but with the attitude that you're probably going to be marrying each other right from the start.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's really something. And I thought of your interview with Olivia. I watched that. About how can you imagine you make that kind of decision and then suddenly they, like, I don't know if it's you or Olivia said, they come out of the woodwork, just suddenly there are men everywhere.
Yeah. It's
and
true.
So I thought it would be fun if, that's where the conflict can come from, that she sort of makes this commitment, I've had it. I'm leaving this so much up to God that I'm not even going to date. I will start dating when I've got a friend, someone that I've been friends with for whoever knows how long, but it's been a friend, not a romance. And then we decide that there's something there. We take it to the next step, but with that in mind. But right after she makes that commitment to the Lord, then she meets the guy immediately after. So I really liked that idea of her,
there's tension
struggle
there. There's so much tension there.
Yeah. So that's where that idea came from. It was a lot of fun.
That is so cool. It was a lot of fun. I have to tell you, this is probably the worst thing I could say to an author, but I was not necessarily an avid reader, and that's the nicest way.
On Facebook, under books, it says not applicable.
On
her account.
And I'm not ashamed of it, but I do wish it were different. I wish that was something that I had been. It just wasn't something I wasn't gifted the enjoyment of that. However, I got your book, the cover. I was like, oh, I dig that. I'm a very visual person. Read the back, and I was like, yeah, I can get behind this. So I picked it up. I think I was home I was home from college, I think, for not very long.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I read that thing from cover to cover
without moving.
In
oh my gosh, that's so cool.
one sitting. I was transported there. I loved the story. I loved the heart. And I was like, I said to you, I have to make this this needs to, I don't know if I said I have to make it because I wasn't a filmmaker quite yet. I didn't know that that's exactly where I was going to go. But I said, this needs to be a movie. And so God was moving and the wheels were turning even then. And so that's kind of how I came to love this book. And then I finished college and I moved to California, and I had a ton of time on my hands. I was at school at UCLA, but I wasn't working. I just was in school. And so I sat down and did we get permission first? I don't know if we should. I don't think we got permission first. I think I just was inspired and I wanted to see where it went. And so
well, you actually finished it, and I was like, well, we better contact the author.
I guess. Yeah, I think that's kind of how it happened. But I just sat down and I adapted. That's the word. I was really struggling to find that word. I adapted it. It was like over 300 pages long because I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to get it all out and then condense and figure out what could be taken out to fit into the 90 minutes that we had to tell the story. And I got to tell you, I have pored over this story. And I have prayed over this book, even after you wrote it and published it. And it has just been such a huge blessing. So this is my letter to you that I wish I would have written when I read it originally. But I fell in love with it. And then, the people that I've talked to about it, Olivia, who read the script, she fell in love with it. She was helping me. She and I have a very Kara and Ren dynamic, which is really cool. And so,
and you need to define who Kara and Ren
oh,
are.
I'm sorry. The lead and her friend.
Yes.
In the book, Kara and her friend Ren. And so she and I are very, as you've seen, you saw the podcast, we play off of each other. We just have this really great friendship. And we also trust each other immensely with our creative inspiration
ideas,
and things like that. So we would sit for hours going through the adaptation and, updating kind of some of the lingo and just what situationally, what would she and I do in this moment or things like that. And so this has been, you just need to know how many people have been involved in this and how many people love this idea and that are excited to see it come to life on the screen. And I know that I've talked a ton and I'm so sorry, but this is the first time I've ever gotten to talk to you. So you just have to know how excited I am and how much we love your book.
Let me interject one thing.
Yeah, please.
So, while all of that is completely true, I have a question though. So you said that you wrote Too Good to Be True first,
which is Ren's story,
right? And you adapted it, but is hers based on any specific character?
No.
Okay.
No. No one in particular. That was just.
Okay.
I was just itching to have fun, with my writing, and just created the characters and just let them unfold.
That's so funny though that you switched them because
that is so cool.
I know. I feel like Kara's like the lead, just because that's what
she is in that book.
Yeah, how we've read that, and then Ren is secondary, but actually Ren was first.
Yeah,
so.
that is very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Publishers really like it if you have a series.
Okay.
Readers apparently like series, and so even Tiffany. My third book that I released, it's Tiffany.
It's her story. Yeah.
and that had not been my idea. I think it was a reader who said, I really want something with Tiffany.
Yeah, she needed it.
Wow.
Yeah. And
she's
that
a
was
fun character. Yeah.
Because I had, she's the bad guy.
Nasty.
And
yeah.
How am I going to make her?
But we love just as a society, you think of Marvel movies and things, we love origin stories.
Mm-hmm.
We love redemption. And
I was thinking redemption.
So so I agree that Tiffany is nasty in The Guy I'm Not Dating, but I really like her. She's just interesting to me, which, hopefully you would want that as someone who's going to make your movies. They just love all of your characters, even the nasty ones.
Yeah.
But so, and I want to get to some of your more current projects. Sorry that we keep talking about this, but you just have to know that this is making like my whole life right now that I get to, like my last 8 years have finally come to this moment. And so I know as we're like reminiscing about this book that you wrote a while ago, and you've read the script. So I guess my next question is there anything in particular that you're excited to see come to life from the script, from your book?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely, especially now that I've got Olivia in my visual perimeters there, I'm very much looking forward to just the meeting, the cute meet cute thing.
Yeah.
And of course the romantic resolution. Those are, two things that I'm really eager to see those happen, especially because last night I finished reading the script again. And I like what you did with it. You made some changes, and I like the changes that you made. I really do like your script. I'm also really eager to see how you cast Addie and her interaction with Tiffany and just that whole road trip thing. Those are the things really stood out with me.
Addie has a very special place in my heart, and we've had serious conversations about that actor. But at the time, we hadn't cast Olivia as Kara. And so we actually had some Caucasian actresses that we had auditioned and had some really great self-tapes from. We had some actresses that we wanted to make offers to. And then just, obviously, as we've said, God just kind of put us on hold. Apparently, I had to move to Chattanooga and get married. I think that's what was happening. But now that we know that Olivia's gonna be Kara, we have to go back to the drawing board on that, probably. And so we are very excited about casting Addie.
Addie is hilarious.
I just love her. And you're right, her interactions with Tiffany are just golden.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of wrap up talking about the guy I'm not dating, I just have to say, first of all, thank you for I guess answering the call might be too strong of a word, but not our call, God's call, to trust us with this story. I hope that you know that it's something that we take very seriously. We're very passionate. We love the story. We want to do it justice. And so, over the last few years, as we've worked with you, as you've granted us rights to make it, I just want you to know how grateful we are and how excited we are. and it's going to be awesome. And God will hopefully receive all of the glory. We're excited.
Amen to
We're
that.
excited about it.
We definitely want God to be proud, but we do want you to be proud too.
That's true. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So you have been working on other things in the last few years as well.
Sorry, I'll be done. I'm done talking about it.
And so I was looking on your website, and you have a new book out, a newish book. It's a romantic suspense novel called A Special Kind of Double. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, that actually I have a more recent one. I haven't even gotten it on the website yet because it just came out this week. And that's back to, kind of romantic comedy, kind of a never too late story, woman going back to college. It's a 40-year-old. So that's one that I.
Well, tell us about that one
tell
first.
us about that. We need to hear about that. It came out this week.
Yeah, that one, I mean, it's not autobiographical, since I just said that I went back to school, but it is a kind of a never too late story as a woman who got pregnant as a teen and was dumped. And so her youth was spent raising her daughter. She devoted herself to raising her daughter and providing for her daughter. So now she's 40 and her daughter married young. Her daughter's, very responsible, married young, and has moved out. So now the mom, the heroine, has decided, I'm gonna do something else with my life. I've just been working to pay bills and to raise my daughter, and so she goes back to UCLA, and the romance that happens for her is with a professor, not one of her professors, but a professor there that she kind of clashes with at UCLA. So that's
I like that.
But yeah, the one you were talking about, Diane.
What's that book called, though?
Oh, that's called You're Where I Want to Be.
You're Where I Want to Be. Now available.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. But the romantic suspense that you referred to, Diane, the special kind of double, that was the first one I wrote after moving out here to LA. So it's set here in LA. And I just had been reading a lot of suspense and romantic suspense. So it was just kind of, turning. And so I thought, I kind of want to write something like that. So I got this idea of, what kind of twist could I put into a story? Because I have so much respect for people that are able to do that. I don't know, where do you start at the end and move backwards? I'm always so impressed with it. So mine is not, it's not like, one of the heavy duty, Grisham or Hannibal or any of those, but it's fun, and it does have a nice little twist. And it is about a woman who, her sister, who is kind of often running off on a wild hare, her sister disappears, and she thinks that she's just taken off with somebody, and but then circumstances don't dictate that. They starts to look a little more sinister. So she is trying to find her sister, and for certain reasons, she can't really pull the police in on it. So it's she and this young guy who she meets, trying to figure out what's happened to the sisters.
Very cool.
That is. Now, see, unlike Sarah, I am a reader. So I will be getting both of those books.
Very cool.
So in the midst of COVID and all of this, do you do any kind of tour or anything? Or it's just going to be social media?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's strictly social media. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just putting it on the website, putting it on, Facebook and Instagram and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, we'll promote,
all
promote
of
it all
those
day.
things.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, so for our listeners and on social media, where can they find you? What's the best way to stay in contact with you and follow your journey?
I have a website, which is trishperry.com. I have a blog on there, but it's almost always featuring other authors and their current releases in inspirational fiction mostly.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
I'm sorry?
How does that work?
Well, I every 6 months I put out a call I'm in various writers loops,
Okay.
I put out a call, if you're going to have a release over the next 6 months, let me know. I'm doing interviews, and each week I feature a different author and their newest release and what it's about, and sort of like what you guys are doing, except
for authors,
short and written. And the author always gives away a copy of their book to
so
one
cool.
person, a subscriber or someone who comments.
So you're just being a blessing to everybody.
Yeah.
Talk about encouragement.
Talk about an encourager. No, for real. You're using your website to help promote others and to hear their story and to share their story. I think that's incredible.
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun.
awesome.
It's fun. And it's nice for me too. It's nice to, especially now, it's you can't go to conventions or anything like that. So it's nice to, be able to be in touch with fellow authors as well.
And you kept that up all through the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Trish, we are so grateful that you talked with us today. This has been so life-giving to us. I feel like I've been holding on to hope that we would get to meet someday, and now it's here, and God is... This has just been a huge blessing to me, and I know to her as well.
Me too.
And so we are so excited for all of the things that God has in store for you. Congratulations on your new book. We hope that our listeners and our watchers will go and check your website out and take a look. And we are so excited to work with you on bringing your story to the big screen, hopefully.
Amen.
And we're just so grateful for your time.
No, I'm very grateful too for all the hanging in there you guys have been doing with the movie. I will have it in prayer all the time. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and a real pleasure to meet you guys.
Absolutely, same to you. Have a great weekend, and we will be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Yes, we will.
Okay, thanks. Bye bye.
All right.
Bye,
well, thank
Trish.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. For more information on Project Brickworks and how you can get involved, visit us online at projectbrickworks.org. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, like our Facebook page, and if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and turn on notifications. If you're listening to this on a podcast, please subscribe and be encouraging with your rating. We love y'all. Be blessed, and we'll see you next time.